So, welcome to Tools for Turbulent Times. Today is about expanding your toolkit to be supported amidst the chaos. And so, what is turbulence? The turbulence is really anything that throws us off center. We've all experienced turbulence in a plane, and we know from experience that turbulence can thrust us into fear. Turbulence may thrust us into anger. We may get frustrated by world events or by whatever's going on with our family or our partners. Turbulence may thrust us into grief or being unable to process that grief, being sad about what's going on, whether it's in your day-to-day life or in the bigger picture. And the thing is that there are long-term consequences to staying in fear or grief or numbing, because that's what tends to happen with these difficult emotions. We're not used to being with them. We're not used to being with our fear. We're not used to being with our anger or really expressing it. We haven't learned tools to process grief. And when we are reacting from fear, we are adding to the scarcity in our world, the not enough of our entire society, and what sometimes drives us to make decisions that just add to that fear. When we are driven from anger, we get stuck in fight or flight, and we are reacting and simply adding to the poison or the hatred or the divide that's in the world or in ourselves or in our communities. And when we are with grief that is unprocessed, think about grief as the loss of possibility. So the loss of losing someone, the loss of what vision you might have had, the loss of a job, or the loss of an opportunity. And when we aren't able to fully be with the grief, we cannot then open to new possibility. We can't open to what could come if we open ourselves to what opportunities there are. And so, Tools for Turbulent Times is about transmuting these programs. It's about shifting what binds us so that we can shift from scarcity to trust, so that we can start to attune to what's real versus what's distortion. And so we can move from being in fear to living in joy, to reclaiming our authenticity, to reclaiming who we really are, and to shift from hustle to harmony. And so, with that, I want to give an overview for today and, of course, introduce my co-leader today. So, I'm going to lead us into a grounding practice, and then Annie's going to get into some IFS inquiry. And before we do that, I just want to briefly introduce myself. So, some of you I know very well, and it's so wonderful to see you and to see you again. And some of you I don't. And so, I'm Rimi Chakraborty, and I'm dedicated to elevating consciousness. And elevating consciousness means that we recognize that everything is connected, that our thoughts have a vibration and have an impact, that our words are literally weaving our world into reality, and that our actions have a ripple effect. And we're seeing this with one person in the world making decisions that affect the whole world. And so, those of us who are smart and capable, all of you here, us high performers, we have a responsibility to use our power for solutions, and not just to advance our own agenda, but to advance solutions for the greater good. And so I have an MBA from MIT Sloan. I have over a decade of management consulting experience, including numerous certifications in communication and neurolinguistic programming. And then I also have 25 years of yoga, meditation, energy healing experience and training, as well as alternative tools such as ancestral healing, Akashic records. And so I bridge the traditional and the business tools with the alternative emotional intelligence or conscious leadership to help us elevate consciousness, to help us find real solutions. Annie.
Hello, everybody. I'm so delighted to see you and meet those of you that I don't know, and always delighted to have an opportunity to partner with Rimi. I am a psychotherapist in the greater Boston area. I have for the last decade or two been really steeped in a model of therapy called internal family systems, which I'll talk about a little bit more. I'm also a certified group therapist, and my work has really been dedicated to helping people to connect with themselves and with others, not only to heal internal wounds and trauma, but really to increase flexibility and range in responding to whatever is in front of us relationally or situationally. So I'm hoping to get to share some of that wisdom with you and learn about what you're grappling with. And I know it's a brief time, but I'm really excited to be here.
Yay. And I'm so excited you all get to meet and experience Annie. If you don't already know her, I was fortunate enough to meet her some years ago, and her guidance and wisdom is really meaningful. So I hope you experience and feel that today. So we're going to get right into our practice.
Quick question, Amy.
Oh, actually, yes.
Do you want to make me co-host in case anybody joins while you're
Yes.
practice?
Thank you. That's a great suggestion. Also, did you want to just give a brief overview of the framework?
I will do that. Well, actually, yes, I will do that now. That's a good idea. Okay. So internal family systems model. Well, first I want to ask people just to throw into the chat if you even know what I'm talking about. If you've had any access or experience, give it a 1. If you have done any work or training, give it a 2. If you've done, anything that you would call more depth or complexity, give it a 3. Just throw it in the chat so I know a little bit about where people are at. Um, I gotta let it know. Okay, so the internal family systems model was originally developed as a model of psychotherapy, though it's now used in many, many settings from coaching to negotiation to business leadership development. It was developed by a guy named Richard Schwartz, who was a family therapist, and he um, it's he posits that having a multiplicity of internal parts is normal, natural, non-pathologizing. And he developed a model to help guide people into relationship with the different parts of their internal system so that they could have more access, awareness, and again, back to flexibility and range. So we all know about having a lot of parts, right? Like part of me this, like, like a part of you wants to be here and a part of you maybe wants to be outside right now or taking a nap, right? Like that's normal, right? We're always negotiating between our, parts of us that care about our own needs, parts of us that care about other people's needs, parts of us that hold certain beliefs or habits or live in various neural networks, have cultural traditions embedded in them, all kinds of things. So it's really a model to try to help us be more aware of and access the information that's stored in the system because we ward off and exile parts that hold pain or aspects of ourselves that maybe we don't like. One of the hallmarks of the IFS model is that there are no bad parts. um, the parts form a complex internal system, some of which help us manage daily life, like get us here, some of which carry emotional pain or trauma or memory, some of which carry implicit beliefs, and some that work to protect us from pain, often very adaptively, like, those managerial parts of us that keep us functioning, over functioning, and often and sometimes maladaptively. But the idea is that every part holds value for the system. And no matter how distancing or seemingly self-defeating or seemingly destructive, in this model, all parts are understood as having developed with positive intention, withholding wisdom for the system, and withholding energy that can be harnessed and utilized some often, more adaptively. So the model that I'm just going to share like a tiny taste of you later guides us into relationship with this system so we can notice the parts as entities that are distinct. And in the model of IFS, this is known as unblending. And unblending bypasses intellectual defenses and interpretations and allows us room to establish a relationship and learn about the beliefs and reactions and rules and intentions and help them to develop and transform that energy. So just real quickly, one of the, very quick results about this is always, immediately parts we tend to have the impact of reducing reactivity, reducing defensiveness and projection, and having less inner conflict. When you stop ignoring parts and start listening, they don't need to act out as much. They don't need to clamor in the ways that they do. And with more awareness, generally comes more self-compassion because even our most difficult parts are trying to help us. So I'll stop there and see if I
Mhm.
can show you a little bit more in a bit.
Yeah, nice comment, Heather. Like children. Very well said.
Absolutely. In fact, so one of my group members, like a 70-year-old man said, we think that we're adults, but we're really all walking daycare centers. And it's true. And when we can sort of notice the age, the belief, the perspective, the context of different parts of ourselves, that it really creates a lot of space.
Mm. Thank you, Annie. That was an amazing overview. And I hope that was helpful, even if you had heard of IFS or as much as those of you who are new to it. So we're going to get into a practice. And if you want to go off camera, you are welcome to. It's so nice to see you all here. But if you want to go off camera during the practice, we're just going to be seated or standing. I'll stay seated so that you can see and hear me clearly. But if you want to stand and you've been sitting all day, you are welcome to stand. Um, and I'm going to invite you to work with something that might be a bit uncomfortable and might be a bit different than usual behavior, such as the ignoring or the it'll be fine. So let's see how this goes. But again, I want you to give yourself permission to be consensually vulnerable with yourself. And so that means that you can choose to work with something simple. Um, and this is a place to explore. And I love that today's also a new moon. It's a really powerful new moon today, if you pay attention to astrology. And it's a great time to set new habits. And how incredible is it that we're doing this and helping to get behind, those emotions of fear, grief, anger, anxiety, whatever, or even too much joy. That could be something that we even block our joy sometimes to shift into this new chapter, to shift the consciousness that we're creating. So with that, I want you to get comfortable. You don't need anything to write on just yet. You might want to write something later, but you can put all that aside and just, if you're standing or seated, I want you to have your feet flat on the ground, uncrossed if you're sitting. And just take a moment. You're all on mute, so I invite you to take a sigh as you next exhale. So and we're going to start by kind of getting out of our heads and into our bodies. And so we're going to do that first by simply taking some neck circles. So, really gently with the straight spine, the straight opening of the heart, we're going to round the head, just round the head around the axis of your spine. And this can be slow, this can be as much or as little as it feels right for you, but almost like you're kind of releasing the pressure valve between your head and your heart. You're kind of opening that space, switch direction if you haven't already, and kind of just letting that intensity or the storminess or the brilliance. We all carry a lot of brilliance, but as Annie was saying, we want to get behind the intellectualizations, right? We want to get behind that to emotions, to our parts. And so when you feel even, take a moment and just take another breath here. You can exhale through the nose or through the mouth, whatever feels right. And then just coming into the shoulders here, I want you to just roll the shoulders. And as you do so, you can really open the spine like kind of a cat-cow movement, if you're familiar with that, really undulating or flossing the spine. Again, just letting that intensity or that noise or all the stuff just sort to trickle down, creating space in the vertebrae, like you're lubricating the spine. Taking one more movement like that. And then slowly, standing or sitting tall, we're going to start to guide our breath. And your breath can be in and out of the nose if that feels okay for you. And if your breathing rhythm is faster, slower than mine, you can certainly go with what works for you. So here, I invite us all to exhale. And we're going to inhale from the top of the head as if you could bring your breath down into your heart and into your belly. Exhale. So let's inhale. Imagine breath moving from your head to your heart. And then exhale down, belly and feet. Inhale from your head to your heart, and down as you exhale, belly and feet. Inhale, feeling or visualizing or imagining breath moving downward. And exhale, letting it release down through your feet. In from the top of your head, down through the spine. Exhale, just surrendering and letting go of anything that you're ready to release, any heaviness. Inhale, breath moves in and down. Exhale, just releasing any distraction, any noise, any places that you find yourself maybe shifting to. Inhale, breathing in and down. And exhale, like you could let go of what keeps us from being. Continuing to breathe in your own rhythm. And it's a way to begin the process of surrendering or allowing ourselves to be in the subtle body. Or another way to think of it or feel into it is to allow yourself to be with what's present. So one more breath here, just slowing down the exhale and even lengthening the exhale. And then I invite you to feel into something or think about something that you normally push aside. So the thing that you usually say, no, it's just fine, no big deal. Really trust yourself to go with what comes up first. Again, an emotion, or maybe it's a part of you that you usually don't sit and breathe with. And if there are many, I invite you to choose one, the one that is quote unquote the loudest, however you experience that. So taking a moment to just notice, where in the body do you feel this discomfort or this unusual place? We can call it an unusual place, unusual being that we don't usually sit with it. So where in your body do you sense it to be? And there's no wrong answer. It could be the throat, it could be the chest, it could be the belly, it could be the jaw. And then taking a moment to see if you can breathe some space around this unusual area or unusual part. As if you could create space, almost as if it were like slipping a piece of paper between you and this discomfort, or between you and this emotion that you don't usually sit with. Can you breathe some space around it? And what does that look like? Is it a felt sense? Like there's literally some lighter spaciousness in that area now. Maybe a little, maybe a lot, maybe not. Or is it a visual sense of seeing in that place, a luminosity or a brightening. And then just noticing, is this place, is this unusual part of you, does it have a texture? Is it sharp or is it smoky or choppy or dense or heavy? And does it have a shape? And just noticing your breath. If at any time you need to again breathe in and down and out, feel free to do so. And as you observe this emotion, this unusual part, or whatever it is that you are connecting with here, notice if you can step into the seat of the observer. Can you observe? Can you notice? Can you see or sense or feel? And just starting to become aware of what's present. And maybe as you sit in this role of observer, you can start to be in this space behind whatever it is that might be at the root of what we were talking about earlier, this thing we want to avoid, but that's really running the show. And so staying with this observation, and from here, I'm going to hand it over to Annie. You're on mute.
Yeah, I got it. I myself. So what's really beautiful is that what you just did, Remy, maps really perfectly onto some of the first, for those of you who are familiar with the internal family systems model, with the first few steps of it. And I want to invite people to continue, two choices, to continue with the part that you've noticed, or you might check and see if there's a polarized part, a detractor, a part that's in conflict or judging what you've been working with. So for example, personally, I found myself tuning into a feeling of helplessness and despair about the world. And then I notice there's a part of me that doesn't permit me to go there, right? That resists it, that fights it, that flies into action. So you might kind of want to stay with your original part, or you might notice, is there a detractor? Is there a resistor? Is there a protector that you might want to draw your attention to now? So either way, just take a moment to settle in and feel into what feels right. If it's a different part, a moment just to notice where that one lives in or around the body. You may or may not have a physical sense of it. It might be image or thought or message. And here's the IFS shift. Start to notice, how do you feel towards this part of you? Not what you think about it, if you like it or don't, but how do you feel towards it? So you might start to notice, I like it or I don't like it, or I want to get rid of it, or I'm afraid of it, or I resent how it dominates me, or I depend on it. Let's just start to notice that. How are you feeling toward it? And would it be okay to ask any evaluating that's happening in your system just to ease into the background? And some of what I say, this is a process, right? So some of what I say might resonate with you. Some of it you can just ignore. Some of it'll, just take you where it takes you. But you might notice if you can invite some of all that to step back, you might notice a little bit of openness to this part of you. You might notice some open-heartedness or some interest or some curiosity. And if you don't, just check in with whatever might be blocking that. If you feel anything other than a kind of openness or curiosity or a willingness to get to know this part of you, that's coming from other parts that have been trying to deal with it. So again, just inviting those parts to relax back for just a few minutes. You might want to reassure them you're not necessarily going to do anything differently. This is just an exploratory process. Just to get to know something better. And if they're not willing, we won't pursue it with them, and they'll become the target part, the part of your inquiry, right? So just taking another moment to see where you are in relation to the part you are wanting to work with, if you've got room to work with it, and any persistent attractor then becomes the focus of your attention. So if you get to the point of just being curious about this part of you, see if you might be able to in some way invite it to let you know what it wants you to know about itself. Just a nice open-ended question, and not something you want to think of or try to figure out. Those would be coming from other parts. But just go with whatever might emerge from it. You might invite it to show or tell you something about how and where it got its beliefs or its habits. You might invite it to show or tell you something about its age or where in time it might be located. Or who it helps you preserve relationship with or did. Or how it might have developed to try to protect you from something. Just inviting it to show you what does it want you to know about itself and what is it afraid would happen if it didn't do this thing inside of you, if it didn't create this reaction. And you might notice that it's telling you something about how it's been trying to protect you. And if that's true, just extend a little appreciation to it for at least trying to keep you safe, even if sometimes it backfires or if there's a high cost. And notice if this part has any response to your appreciation. If it softens or shifts in any way, or has any more to tell you. And maybe even ask it if you could go with your adult wisdom to the part that it protects and heal and change that, so this part didn't need to work so hard, what might it like to do instead with its energy? If it was liberated from this protective role or this particular function, what might it like to do inside of you or help you with? And then this is kind of an odd question, but ask this part, how old does it think you are? Don't think about it, just see what comes. And if it's not entirely accurate, see if it's available to be updated and how it reacts. Heather commented in the chat, like children. It's true. These are parts that get frozen in time with the beliefs and the perspective and the limited perspective of kids. Last question before we open it up. What does it need from you going forward? Just stay with that for a moment. What does it need from you going forward? That might be something it needs to know about you and your capacities. It might be more of your attention and presence. And when the time feels right, thank any parts of you that emerged to communicate with you for whatever they've let you do in this very brief time. And start to shift your focus back to the present.
Okay, so thank you, Annie. That was really profound guidance. I want to give you all a chance to write some things down for yourself because that might have been, really insightful for many of us. So I want to just give some reflection questions here. Do you guys see the slides here, the reflection questions? Yeah, okay. So there's just some questions here. You don't have to answer them all. You can write whatever you want, but these are just some suggestions. We'll just give it about another minute just to write some notes for yourself. And so if you're still writing, please feel free. I just want to share where we're headed. We are going to go into some smaller groups so you have a chance to share. And when you share, remember this consensual vulnerability that I spoke about. So you don't have to share what you wrote. You can share what you're comfortable sharing. You can share what you wrote, right? And we'll have a few minutes, ideally 2 minutes each, and just to make it easy, so we're not like, oh, you go first, no, you go first. We'll go in alphabetical order by first name. And when someone is speaking, give yourself, if you're listening, give yourself permission to just listen. You don't need to fix or answer or support. I know my parts often want to coach sometimes when I'm not invited, so maybe you can relate. So remember, you're welcome to just listen, and we'll have a chance to come into the larger group and share a few questions or comments that came from these. So if anyone does not want to be in a breakout room, if you have to hop off or something, we're only going to be in them for about 6 to 8 minutes, but just message me, DM me. Otherwise, I will set that up.
In November, Remy and I will be co-leading a second retreat. We met several years ago. I was just visiting Minavita with friends for vacation and felt just under the spell of the magic of the place. Remy and I connected about our work and the intersection of what we do, and we concocted this idea to do a retreat together. And we have one of our former retreat participants here is going to say a little bit. Hi, Lisa. But we're doing this again in November. We have a couple spots, and it's really an incredible opportunity for those of you who have or haven't been to Minavita to experience, you were talking, Jeff, about a slowdown, but a place to really slow down, connect in with amazing food, amazing nature, participants with beautiful intentions and using yoga and some of these kinds of exercises and processes to really get in contact with your own clarity, capacity for decision making, work through polarizations that might block your intentions. It's called a leadership development retreat, and that's really for anybody who's leading in any setting at all, including self-leadership. So Lisa, can I cue you up to say anything more about that?
Sure. I had never done a retreat before. 59, never done a retreat. And I just feel like I gave a huge gift to myself, which rippled out to many of my relationships. So I was a federal public defender for a long time. I do a leadership development program for federal defenders. I'm also a coach. And I experienced the retreat on so many different personal and professional levels. So I didn't have much familiarity with IFS, and I experienced, I mean, I really got a little unstuck on some things, um, which was pretty profound for me and created some harmony in my marriage, where there wasn't some, which was great. And then as a coach, I really feel like I did some additional learning after the retreat, and I really use this idea of parts frequently in my coaching, which has been huge, and I want to learn more. But the other thing, and I know I told Remy, I felt so taken care of. I'm a vegan. The food was beautiful. I mean, Remy and Joao walk into their backyard and pick food, and then their beautiful team cooks food for you. And the yoga every day. The setting is just gorgeous. Flowers and fresh air and sea and mountains. I mean, it's like a paradise. And then I think I would just close by saying I just feel very deeply bonded with the people who were there, and really sign up right now if you can do it. Thank you both.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your warm words of encouragement. And Paige, who's here, is going to be at our retreat. So excited to see you, Paige. It'll be your third time, I think, at Minu Vita. And I know Heather, who's on the call, has been to our place. She's not coming this November, but I'm sure you'll be back next year. I think you're an annual retreater. Anyway, so let me share with you a little bit about, we're so grateful to have so many of you who have come, and we hope that this work translates into real meaning as we get to be together in retreat. And that's why we run retreats, so we can actually explore these things in more than just an online call. And so briefly, because I know some of us have to hop right at the hour, it's November 4th to 10th. It's every day I'll be teaching movement in the form of, excuse me, yoga, breathing, meditation, mantra, and some energy work. And then Annie will be leading the internal family systems workshops. And I hope you got a sense of how we complement each other. As Lisa mentioned, there is wonderful food. We have all of our meals taken care of. There are also some hikes. We'll be doing some practices in nature. And there are hot springs, a volcanic paradise. We have to go to the hot springs. And I also will lead us through some real important experiences in ritual, which is simply getting out beyond our individual self to the self with a capital S, so that it's a way to honor, our process. And in the last retreat and the last retreats that we've done, it's a really meaningful way to really transmute all that we've learned, and to open up possibility. And so we have a few spots left, and it's in euros, but I put it in here in dollars just to give you the dollar amount. So it's just over 3,000 for the entire week, and it's 27.95 euros if you see on the website. And we have single rooms with shared baths that are remaining. And if we end up getting enough spots, we might open up some single rooms with a partner just across the street. So there may be a wait list for that if that's of interest. And here is the QR code to apply. Um, and we are offering, if you apply by July 31st, which is next week, that you will get a free massage. We have amazing body workers here who live on the island and who I work with monthly. And if you join by July 31st and sign up, you will be able to get a free massage while you're here on retreat. So would love to see you. And with that, I want to make sure I give a moment just to say goodbye so people don't feel rushed. But thank you so much for your time and for your attention. And if there's any questions or comments, please, I'll be around for a few minutes if you can stay. If not, thank you.